that was the routine until the court popped up in the backyard. The rear yard at the time was a graveyard of steel, of boilers, of remnants of materials that came from landmarks throughout the city.
Here we are for another edition of Boast About It. I'm here with my good friend. Can I call you a good friend?
I think so.
Okay. Vera Galvez. Vera, welcome.
Thank you for having me.
Oh, I'm so excited to have you. You are my favorite type of squash player because you started a little later in life, so did I, and you now love it, and you play all the time, and so do I. That's why I love people like that. You're just looking at me like I'm a complete lunatic.
Because we can relate.
Yeah, so we can relate. What I thought that we could do is talk about how you discovered squash, because my understanding is you've been in the sort of construction architecture world for your career. Is that fair?
Yes.
And I think you were working at Mount Sinai.
I was at one point, yes.
And then you got recruited by Maspeth Welding, or you found a job. I don't know how that happened.
That's right. I was recruited by the owner of Maspeth Welding, who was a client of mine for over 10 years. And, you know, we had a great working relationship, and he convinced me to join Maspeth Welding, and off I went to a steel company in Queens.
So why did you go to Maspeth? Like, what was it about Maspeth that you were like, oh, I'm going to take this job?
I actually didn't know anything about steel. I didn't know anything about working in a subcontracting trade office. And I had voiced to Jeff previously that I was interested in going back to school for an MBA or looking into another career path, that I was a little bored in architecture and construction, and he thought that could be a complete waste of time and your efforts. It's, you know, an MBA might just be networking. Why not get some real world, you know, get your hands dirty
So you sold Maspeth as a practical MBA.
Right, yes.
In a way.
Yes.
Did you know when you're on your first day, did you know he was such a crazy squash fan that he'd built a squash court at his office?
So I actually joined Maspeth Welding in 2015.
So there wasn't one there?
There was no squash court. There was a really down and dirty facility with, you know, that was very industrial, as you can see now.
So
but
you were there when he decided to build it?
Yes.
And was that your first sort of introduction? I mean, maybe you'd heard about it, but was that your first real introduction to squash?
Well, I knew that Jeff was a squash fanatic.
Not just a squash player, but
Right.
a squash fanatic.
A fanatic. He was you know, I think he played every day.
Yeah.
And he would leave Maspeth and run into the city to go to his club and play squash for an hour and then go back to work. And that was part of his routine. And that was the routine until the court popped up in the backyard.
Were you part of building that, or did some other people build it and then you discovered it?
It was a huge collaboration, and the thoughts went around for months, and there was a lot of experimenting, bouncing balls off of walls and floors and steel, and, you know, looking at dimensions. And I was there kind of in the background working as Jeff and Robert and Sari. Sari is the architect for the steel court. Kind of played around and tried to figure out how to make it happen.
So you were there watching these crazy guys, three guys, go like, oh, I don't know, let's throw this in it. Does this work? That sort of thing.
Right. Well, look, this is a norm at Maspeth. We're a quirky bunch.
You're a little quirky, a little crazy. My favorite people are crazy.
With passion and creativity, and, you know.
So then they built the squash court, and for those of you that would like to learn more, I've got several interviews up, some located at the squash court, and then one with Rob Gibraltar, all about how it was built. how did you start? When did you start? Because now you play a lot, like, and you weren't playing at all. When did you start playing? Was your first game on the
So-
court? What happened?
Well, so building anything is a process,
Yeah.
and for us, we really like to fine tune things so that they're as good as we can make them.
Yeah.
The rear yard at the time was a graveyard of steel, of boilers, of remnants of materials that came from landmarks throughout the city. And we cleaned it up and made room for this court. Jeff found a spot where it would fit exactly to
I've seen it. It's a
regulation
miracle. Yeah,
size.
it's literally like
Within
slotted.
existing
Yeah,
beams.
Yeah.
And so everything sat there for a while, but the intent was to build it. But we, like everything in life, it doesn't necessarily happen in time. And the pandemic hit, and work halted on every job site we had.
I had thought it went up before the pandemic. It did not.
We started, but it grew very quickly. Once the pandemic hit and our guys got to work, they had nothing to focus on other than building that court, and so they built the court.
Oh, so to some extent the pandemic accelerated the construction of the court.
It did, and I think it was mostly because all of the other courts were closed.
Oh, that's right. Jeff,
So all the clubs-
squash fanatic, couldn't play squash.
All of the clubs were closed. I had never picked up a squash racket. We finished the court. I remember the first time they played on it.
Which was probably the summer of
local-
2020, right?
Right,
Probably.
the summer of 2020, and all of the local pros started coming. They heard there's a
There's an open squash court.
court in Queens, and we can play, and it's outside. So we don't have to worry about masks. We don't have to worry about social distancing so much. I mean, they were
That's right.
running around the court with
Yeah.
each other. But one of the first couples I saw, set of players, they just happened to be a couple, was Chris and Nayeli Walker. And they came out with Maya, who was, I think, 3 months old, and had her in her little car seat and gave her some cartoons to watch. And they just got on court and started playing. And one after another, the pros came rolling in, and here I am watching. At this point, I don't even know what a pro versus an amateur looks like.
So when was the first time that you decided, oh, I'll give it a go? Did you get pressured into it, or did you I want to give, did you raise your hand, or were you?
I was not that, I was intrigued.
But someone had to push you a little bit.
So many of the employees were very curious as to what was going on. There are all these people coming to Maspeth, knocking on the office door in athletic wear, looking for a squash court. And half of our employees didn't even know it existed
Sure.
for some time because it was, buried way in the backyard.
Yeah.
Jeff and Robert thought, well, why don't we start offering lessons to the employees? Free lessons to any of the employees, as long as you're an employee, even family, family
Yeah.
members of employees. And so I started taking lessons with Robert.
Robert was giving the lessons.
A couple of other employees decided to join, and I picked it up, and I got really into it. But I was an athlete growing up, but I hadn't worked out for 20 years probably. This was great. It was
at work.
it was at work. It was, everybody's got, a gym at work or a
And
treadmill.
your CEO was a
Yeah.
squash fanatic, so he was never going to criticize you for playing squash. So you're good.
I think he's my biggest critic, and Robert.
But only to help you with your squash game, I'm sure.
Right.
You've taken it to another level though, because so in 2021 you're playing. Rob's giving you these lessons. You're on the court. But if I fast forward to now, you're a member at Open Squash, so you're playing here and there, right? Yes.
Yes. I play a little everywhere.
Yeah. So squash has become quite a big part of your life. Talk to us
A
about
huge part of my life.
How did that happen?
So, at one point, Robert told me, "You're not going to get better unless you play more than once a month." and we were.
That's true.
We
Generally
were,
more than once a week.
we were entering the cold season, and I wanted to improve. I realized it was a good, healthy habit, and I was seeing, physical changes. I wasn't as sore so much. I was losing weight. I was, being a lot more conscious about what I was eating or.
Isn't that funny how that happens? Like, if it wasn't for squash, I wouldn't care what I ate.
Like, sometimes I starve myself.
Don't do
before
that.
I
That's
play.
not good. Okay, that's not good.
I just didn't want to get on court and feel full.
Oh, yeah. No, I won't eat 3 hours before a game.
Right.
Yeah.
But it was getting cold, and I decided I was going to look for a place to train, a place to continue practicing. I mean, at the time,
I know a place.
I couldn't hit the ball straight. So I did some research, and I found a program with Josh Easton.
Yeah. Mum's Morning Madness.
Mom's Morning Madness, which was so much less intimidating than joining a squash clinic. It was, oh, that must be the moms who have kids who are learning to play, and that would be me. I'm a mom. I can join.
Yeah.
So I joined Josh's clinics, and I was.
Thank you, Josh.
And I still see Josh, and he's now he's coached my husband. He's given my son lessons. My son, I did a camp with him a couple of weeks ago.
So the whole family's playing now.
But I started at open squash, and that opened up so many doors and introduced me to so many other people within the community that it's kind of endless at this point. But
So do me a favor, to this camera over here, which is our audience, what would you tell someone, a woman, who's graduated from college and has not yet retired, so very broad spectrum of women, what would the reasons be for them to start playing squash? What changes in yourself, or what positive things have you seen as a result of playing squash?
I would say, if you want to join a sport that really challenges you, to the point physically and mentally, that then you should try squash. But there's a wonderful community of women and at all levels who are very supportive, and I think that's what brought me into the sport.
I've seen you, I don't remember when we met, maybe 2 or 3 years ago, but your squash has improved so dramatically. Like, you are a good squash player now. And as you said before, you couldn't hit the ball straight. But your squash is just dramatic. And then secondly, I know what an important part of your life it is, because you came to Bermuda with us for a squash tournament.
I don't know how we ended up there. I don't even know how we signed up.
So I don't know, when it was a team thing, did someone recruit you?
I think it was Mike Pepper.
Was Mike Pepper? Mike Pepper, our cameraman, recruited Vera to play on his team. There you go, Mike. Good job. Good job.
Great team.
It was a great team.
Great
I
team.
think that weren't you like Pepper's Angels or something?
Deadly.
Pepper's Deadly
Deadly
Angels.
Angels.
You were a Pepper Deadly
Yeah,
Angel.
we were pretty deadly.
And I think it was a little bit of fun. What do you
It
think?
was a ton of fun.
Yeah.
It was a ton of fun. I mean, I think that squash for me has taken me to places that I would never think to go on my own. Now I in my constant, learning, I'm always looking for a court to play on so that I can maintain that level of training and physicality over time, so that I'm not taking a break for 2 weeks and then coming back to catch up on where I left off. And I'll travel for squash. I will, if I travel for work, or if I travel for family, or just for fun, I'm always looking for a squash court. And there's almost a squash court everywhere you go if you really look hard enough. Sometimes I even find myself not wanting to travel to certain places if they don't have a squash court around.
I think that's a good reason. If you don't have a squash court, we're not showing up.
Right. But it's a fun time with good people. I mean, I played my first tournament here at 5A.
That's right, you play tournaments now. What's the best you've done in a tournament?
I mean, I've won a couple of tournaments.
You've won tournaments? Oh my God! You know, I've never won a tournament
The
in my
skill
life.
level tournament.
Yeah, I've never won a skill level tournament in my life.
I have a trophy case in the office, and I leave it at the office because I think
High five!
the proudest people would be the people at work who, taught me to play. But
That's amazing. That is amazing.
I started playing, and I've had the luxury of watching all of these pros. I mean, 95% of the people who play in Maspeth, 90% are former pros, world ranked pros, or up and coming, college students, teams. Really good squash players.
Very, very good squash
I mean,
players.
I watch so much good squash that I think that that's what I look like.
It
It's
is.
fun.
Vera,
Yes.
you look exactly like
Yes.
that. I don't, but you totally do.
I mean, I remember my first tournament. It was, Naomi Walker told me one day that I should join the Women's Howe Cup, which is the largest women's tournament in the United States.
Yeah.
And at that Howe Cup, I met women from all over the country who I see frequently, and we keep in touch, and we travel together. And if I ever travel, I'll ask the women's community, is anyone around to play? I'm going to be in Houston, or I'm going to be in Miami, or whatnot. And
you just find people.
It's fun. And whether or not you're playing at the same level, you find things to learn from each other, or
It's
have a good
fantastic.
hit.
Vera, thank you so much for coming.
Thanks for having
It's been
me.
great. We are so excited to have you as part of our community. Thank you.
Thank you.
There we go.